Most people look at the escalating crisis in the Middle East right now and see a traditional military conflict. They are looking at the wrong battlefield. On March 18, 2026, Israeli jets didn't just hit another missile silo or military base. They struck the South Pars gas field in Iran. Within hours, Iran retaliated, not by aiming at military bases, but by launching ballistic missiles at Qatar's Ras Laffan liquefied natural gas terminal. We have officially crossed the Rubicon. This is no longer just about territorial defense. It has mutated into total economic warfare. In this video, I'm going to show you why the South Pars strike is the single most dangerous escalation we have seen so far, how it exposes a terrifying structural fragility in global energy, and why the collateral damage of this new phase is the global economy itself. We are witnessing a scenario that energy strategists have treated as a doomsday theoretical for decades, playing out in real time. Why does this matter right now? Because global markets are already in a state of shock. Following the strike, Brent crude instantly surged past $110 a barrel, and European natural gas prices spiked by roughly 50%. If you misinterpret this as just another tit-for-tat military exchange, you will fundamentally miscalculate the trajectory of global inflation, energy security, and regional stability for the next decade. If this escalation continues, we aren't just looking at localized blackouts. We are looking at a multi-basin energy crisis that alters how the world powers itself. Here is how we are going to break this down. The geological giant. Why the sheer scale of the South Pars field makes it the aorta of the Middle East. The new doctrine. The strategic logic behind targeting a nation's wallet instead of its weapons. The global contagion. How this energy-for-energy warfare is about to hit consumers in Europe, Asia, and the Americas. I've spent years analyzing geopolitical inflection points, and the data is clear. The rules of engagement just changed forever. Let's get into it. You cannot understand the gravity of this strike until you understand the sheer, terrifying scale of the target. If we borrow a concept from human biology, think of the global energy supply chain as a cardiovascular system. Most strikes we've seen over the last year, hitting a localized refinery or an export terminal, are like cutting a capillary. The body bleeds, but it patches itself up. South Pars is not a capillary, it is the aorta. Let's start with the absolute baseline fact. The North Dome. South Pars Reservoir, shared between Iran and Qatar, is the largest natural gas field on planet Earth. The scale. It holds an estimated 51 trillion cubic meters of recoverable gas. To put that in perspective, that is roughly 85 times the entire annual global LNG trade. The Iranian dependency. On the Iranian side, South Pars is the bedrock of the nation's survival. It produces roughly 70 to 75% of Iran's domestic gas consumption and powers about 80% of the country's electricity generation. The damage. When Israeli forces struck the onshore processing hub at Asaluyeh, it reportedly took offline roughly 100 million cubic meters of gas per day, around 12% to 14% of the field's total output. The actionable payoff. This is the critical takeaway. This wasn't a tactical military strike designed to take out a weapons cache. It was a direct strike on the baseline functionality of a nation of 88 million people. The open loop. But South Pars is a continuous geological bed shared with Qatar, a major U.S. ally and global energy hub. Why take the massive geopolitical risk of detonating infrastructure on a shared reservoir? To understand that, we have to look at a radical shift in military doctrine. The unwritten rules of Middle Eastern deterrence just evaporated. Military theorist Karl von Clausewitz famously said that war is the continuation of politics by other means. What we are watching right now is a reframe of that reality. This war has become the continuation of economic sanctions by explosive means. For months, Israel's target priority followed a traditional ladder: nuclear facilities, then military delivery systems and intelligence command. The Asaluyeh strike marks Phase 3, obliterating the economic infrastructure. The strategic logic. By hitting the energy grid, the goal is to paralyze Iran internally. You shut down the gas, you shut down the power plants. You shut down the power plants. You trigger rolling blackouts, factory closures, and hyperinflation. It is a calculated gamble to create so much internal chaos that the military apparatus loses its foundation. The retaliation. But here is where it becomes a global nightmare. Iran didn't respond by firing a volley of missiles at an air base in Tel Aviv. They adopted the exact same doctrine. Within hours, Iran launched ballistic missiles at Qatar's Ras Laffan industrial city, the retaliatory targets. Ras Laffan isn't a military base. It handles roughly 20% of the world's liquefied natural gas supply. Furthermore, Iran issued sweeping threats to the Samref refinery in Saudi Arabia and the Al Hosn gas field in the UAE, forcing immediate evacuations. We have officially entered an era of energy-for-energy deterrence. Military assets are no longer the primary targets. The foundational economic assets of the state are. The problem with energy-for-energy warfare is that the blast radius doesn't stop at the borders of the Persian Gulf. When you target the wallet of the Middle East, the global economy pays the bill. When you bomb the world's largest gas field, your local grocery bill goes up. Here is the math on why. In finance, there is a concept called systemic fragility, the idea that a system is so interconnected that the failure of one highly concentrated node brings down the entire network. The South Pars/North Dome strike exposed the supreme systemic fragility of global energy. This is not a temporary disruption that resolves when a ceasefire is signed. This is a structural shock. The immediate shock waves. Qatar exports roughly 77 million tons of LNG annually, keeping European homes heated and Asian power grids online. The moment Ras Laffan was hit, the illusion of secure global supply chains vanished. Qatar immediately expelled Iranian attachés, severing a critical diplomatic bridge that had previously stabilized the region. The repair deficit. Once a massive gas processing facility like Asaluyeh is taken offline by high-yield explosives, you cannot just patch it with duct tape. Rebuilding requires advanced technology, specialized compressors, and billions in financing. Technology heavily restricted by Western sanctions. The long-term reality. Even if the conflict ended tomorrow, Iran's capacity to power itself is severely degraded. This means a permanent tightening of the global energy market. Analysts are already pointing out that this could erase tax refunds in the U.S. due to surging gas prices, while pushing Europe back to the brink of the energy crisis they faced in 2022. The era of isolated geopolitical events is over. The global gas and LNG system is no longer just reacting to disruption. It is being actively dismantled node by node. Energy assets are densely clustered, highly flammable, and impossible to replace quickly. The strike on South Pars wasn't just another headline in a long-running conflict. It was a permanent mutation. We have transitioned from a war of military attrition to a war of systemic economic destruction. When combatants realize that taking out a gas field hurts their enemy far more effectively than taking out a bunker, the entire global energy grid becomes a legitimate military target. And that is a terrifying precedent. I have a question for you. Given the catastrophic impact on civilians and the global economy, do you believe that core energy and economic infrastructure should be classified as off-limits under international rules of war, similar to hospitals? Or is targeting the wallet a legitimate strategy to force a quicker end to a conflict? Let me know down in the comments. I'll be reading through them to see where you stand.